Book summary: The Oligarch's Daughter by Joseph Finder. Overview: Joseph Finder's The Oligarch's Daughter is a taut, propulsive thriller that blends political espionage with the chilling shadow of Russian influence in the post-Cold War world. Set against the backdrop of high finance, covert operations, and compromised loyalties, the novel tracks the fall and reemergence of Paul Brightman, former Wall Street whiz who becomes the target of global manhunt. What begins as romance with beautiful woman becomes fight. Survival where every truth unearthed leads to deeper layers of deception. Part 1. The Man in Hiding. Paul Brightman has reinvented himself. Once promising young financier in Manhattan, he now lives in rural New England under the alias John Riley. He works part-time at local general store, keeps to himself, and avoids anything that might draw attention. But Paul isn't just hiding from scandal. He's the target of $1 million bounty placed by Russian intelligence operatives. He's not paranoid. He has good reason to fear every stranger, every drone overhead, every black SUV that turns down his road. His isolation ends abruptly when his cabin is breached. A team of assassins, posing as hikers, attempts to take him out. He escapes into the icy forests of New Hampshire, tapping into old survival instincts honed not just by fear, but by months of contingency planning. It's clear now, the Russians are closing in. But why now, and how did they find him? Part 2, Dangerous Love. The answer lies 6 years in the past. At the peak of his career in finance, Paul meets and falls in love with Tatiana Ivanova, brilliant and striking photographer with mysterious past. Their chemistry is instant and consuming, but Tatiana has secrets. She is the daughter of Grigory Ivanov, one of Russia's most powerful oligarchs, man suspected of having deep ties to organized crime, the Kremlin, and multiple intelligence services. Paul is slow to connect the dots until he finds himself under federal investigation. Unknown to him, Tatiana's proximity has made him person of interest to U.S. intelligence agencies. The CIA believes he may have inadvertently passed on sensitive financial data or been used to launder Russian funds. When Paul tries to prove his innocence, he discovers something more disturbing. Tatiana may not be pawn in her father's games, but an active participant. Then she vanishes. Part 3. Betrayals and Bounties. The love story ends with betrayal. Tatiana disappears from Paul's life just as his world collapses. He's arrested on flimsy charges, detained without explanation, and offered immunity in exchange for turning on her. But Paul refuses. He believes she was manipulated, that she loved him and didn't intend to ruin his life. When he's released, stripped of his job, reputation, and passport, he fakes his death and vanishes. In the years since, he has tried to forget her, but the bounty on his head and the precision of the attack on his hideout suggests someone close to Tatiana and her father is determined to silence him permanently. Paul realizes he must do what he's spent years avoiding, go back into the lion's den. Part 4. The American Connection. Paul reaches out to his only remaining contact, Gabrielle Lorne, retired intelligence analyst who once tried to recruit him. Lorne is bitter, distrustful, but still sharp. Together they uncover startling fact. The bounty on Paul wasn't sanctioned by Russian mafia thugs acting alone. It came through proxy embedded within U.S. intelligence agency. The conspiracy runs deeper than Paul imagined. Grigory Ivanov has spent decades cultivating assets within the ESI, FBI, and Department of Treasury. His daughter, it seems, was part of an operation to penetrate U.S. financial systems through romantic and professional entanglements. Paul wasn't the only target. He was part of larger charm offensive. Worse, someone in Washington is helping cover up the operation. Part 5. Tatiana resurfaces. While following lead in Montreal, Paul finally sees her again. Tatiana is alive, working under another name, this time as photojournalist documenting Eastern European refugees. Their reunion is electric and fraught with tension. She tells Paul she did love him, but her choices were made under threat. Her father forced her to cooperate or risk the lives of people she cared about, including Paul himself. But Tatiana also reveals something Paul never knew. He was never meant to be target. He was collateral damage and plan that went sideways. After the operation unraveled, her father blamed Paul and set the bounty to cover his tracks. Now Tatiana wants to disappear for good. She has documents, passports, cash, evidence of her father's global operations that could clear Paul's name and bring down Ivanov. But doing so would make her target too. They have one shot. Deliver the evidence to journalists willing to go public and survive long enough to see the story break. Part 6. The Oligarch's Fortress. The climax of the novel sees Paul and Tatiana traveling to London, where Grigory Ivanov is attending summit under diplomatic immunity. Paul poses as journalists to get close. With help from Lorne and rogue British operative, they plan to confront Ivanov and publicly expose the network of corruption, surveillance, and covert influence he's built. The scenes in London are high stakes and cinematic. Tracking device, poison wine glasses, hotel suite confrontations, rooftop chases. Paul manages to slip the damning evidence to Guardian reporter moments before final confrontation with Ivanov. In brutal face-off, Paul accuses him of ruining lives under the guise of patriotism. Ivanov, cold and unrepentant, warns that nothing will change. The West is too fractured, too corrupt to act. Paul responds not with threats but with resolve. The truth is virus, you can't contain it forever. Ivanov escapes, but the damage is done. The story goes live. International agencies are forced to act. Assets are frozen. Investigations are launched. Ivanov becomes pariah. Epilogue. New beginnings. Months later, Paul is living quietly under a new identity, this time in Portugal. He's cleared of all charges. Tatiana is presumed dead after staged accident in Vienna. But Paul knows better. They meet once a year in secret on the anniversary of their escape. The world hasn't changed overnight. Corruption still exists. Power still shields the guilty. But the truth is out, and Paul, after years of running, is finally free. Major themes 1. Love and betrayal. At its core, The Oligarch's Daughter is a tragic love story. Paul and Tatiana's romance, intense and passionate, is destroyed by secrets, geopolitical agendas, and betrayal. The novel explores how love can be both weapon and salvation, to identity and reinvention. Paul's transformation from financial golden boy to hunted fugitive is symbolic of the fluidity of identity in digital surveillance heavy work. His journey questions whether we can ever truly escape our past, or whether it always finds way back through Russian influence and American complicity. Finder draws on real-world anxieties about Russian interference, oligarchic wealth, and institutional corruption in the West. The novel suggests that the most dangerous enemies aren't always foreign adversaries, but compromised allies within. 4. Truth versus power. One of the most compelling in the novel is the idea that truth, though often buried, has the power to destroy even the most entrenched institutions. The story champions whistleblowers, journalists, and ordinary citizens who risk everything to expose lies. Narrative style and pacing. Finder writes in crisp, economical prose with short chapters and constant movement. The book unfolds like cinematic thriller, switching between timelines and perspectives with precision. The dialogue is smart and fast in the action scenes, especially in the New Hampshire woods and London finale, are vividly choreographed. There's also psychological depths to Paul's character. His guilt, confusion, and longing for clarity feel anchoring the book emotionally even as the plot hurtles forward. Tatiana, too, is richly drawn. Woman shaped by privilege, coercion, and regret, who ultimately reclaims her agency, reception, and legacy. Critics have hailed The Oligarch's Daughter as Finder's most mature, resonant work to date. Stephen King called it ticket to reading pleasure, and Lee Child praised it as good as it gets. Readers who enjoyed The Americans, Tinker Tailor Soldiers, and The Night Manager will find similar thrills here, but with distinctly modern twists rooted in post-Snowden surveillance and the invisible battle between autocracy and transparency.